The joke landed like a slap. Laughter rippled across the briefing hall, sharp and careless, while the Marine general leaned back in his chair, smiling as if he'd said something harmless. He hadn't even looked at her when he asked. It just tossed it into the air. So, Captain, what's your kill count these days? For a moment, the room felt smaller. The air thickened, and every eye drifted, slowly, toward her. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Captain Elena Hayes sat perfectly still. Her hands rested on the table, fingers lightly touching, steady in a way that came only from years of controlling fear. Inside, though, something tightened. Not anger, not shame. A familiar? She had been here before, in rooms where her presence was tolerated but not fully respected, where her silence was mistaken for weakness. She wondered briefly if this was another battle she'd have to fight without armor. Around her, the hall buzzed with low murmurs. Sunlight slanted through high windows, catching dust in the air, turning each particle into a witness. Some officers shifted uncomfortably. Others smirked, waiting. The general's grin lingered, confident, unaware that he'd stepped on something sacred. Elena's mind drifted backward, uninvited. A narrow street overseas, the smell of smoke and metal, a radio crackling with half-heard orders. She remembered the weight of her rifle, the tremor in her breath, the impossible choice between hesitation and action. Each life she'd taken had not been a notch, not a number. It had been a night without sleep, a face that returned in dreams, a question that never fully left. She thought she'd buried those memories deep enough. She was wrong. The general cleared his throat, amused by the silence. Relax, he said, just making conversation. Elena lifted her eyes, slowly, calmly. The room seemed to lean toward her, as if pulled by gravity. She could feel her pulse in her ears, but her voice when it came was steady. Sir, she said, and the single word cut through the air. I don't keep count. A pause. A flicker of surprise crossed the general's face, quickly masked. Then how do you measure it? He asked, half challenging, half curious. Elena inhaled. The hum of the lights overhead grew louder. Somewhere, a chair creaked. This was the moment. The moral edge. She could deflect with humor. She could retreat into professionalism. Or she could tell the truth and let it stand on its own. I measure it, she said softly, by the people who came home because my team did our job, and by the ones I still carry with me, because war doesn't end when the shooting stops. The room went silent, not the awkward kind, the heavy kind, the kind that presses against the chest. The general straightened, his smile vanished. For the first time, he looked directly at her. Around them, officers exchanged glances. Someone swallowed hard. The joke had nowhere left to land. In that stillness, Elena felt exposed, vulnerable. She wondered if she'd crossed a line, if honesty had cost her something she couldn't afford. But then she noticed it, the shift. Respect, quiet, and unannounced. Settling into the space where laughter had been, the general nodded once, slowly. Thank you, Captain, he said, his voice lower now. That's understood. The briefing resumed, but it wasn't the same. It couldn't be. Words carried more weight. Questions were asked with care. And when it ended, as chairs scraped back and conversations restarted, a few officers stopped by her table. No jokes, just nods. A brief hand on the shoulder. A murmured, glad you said that. Elena walked out into the afternoon light feeling lighter and heavier all at once. She hadn't won anything tangible. No medal, no applause. But she'd reclaimed something quieter. Her story, on her terms. Because courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a calm voice that refuses to turn pain into a punchline. And in that room, where a careless joke had tried to shrink her, truth had expanded until there was space for everyone to breathe again. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below. Subscribe for more human stories of courage and respect. And remember, the quietest answers are often the ones that change the room the most.